Top girl, I me never born in a lace week. Me still shop at DDs, I'ma still shop at Macy's. Now go certain places. Me a girl, me no frightened for link, and me no frightened for face. Young girl, no for kill it.
Hey guys, so I wanted to come and talk about this situation with the black woman who was mauled and bitten in the streets of Harlem.
The search continues tonight for the men who attacked a woman after she told one of them she didn't want him to buy her a bottle of wine. Tonight, she's getting a show of support from her community, calling for justice. CBS 2's Corey James reports from Harlem.
A large crowd of people stretched across 128th Street in Harlem Saturday night, many of them standing directly in front of this liquor store where a 31-year-old mother was brutally beaten Monday. The demonstration was the end of a rally that began 3 blocks away as women, men, and children stood on the corner speaking out against violence targeting the neighborhood.
If we don't do it, who is? It's our responsibility, it's our duty to protect our women and children in our community.
It could have been me, my daughters, my mother, any female. The community as a whole, we all need to stick together.
Earlier this week, CBS 2's Lisa Rosner spoke with the woman assaulted. She says the man wearing a red parka in this surveillance video offered to pay for her wine, but she politely declined. After checking out and walking out the store, the woman says a group of men chased her across the street, then kicking her, one of them even biting her on the forehead.
No matter how much I asked, I'm trying to get to my daughter, please leave me alone. I said I'll call the cops. He didn't care about that. He had one thing on his mind, and that was to attack me. That's what he wanted to do.
The victim's family members showed up to the rally in support of their cousin, who they say is still traumatized.
People can't think that they can do what they want to do. No means no.
Senseless, no reason. She didn't even know them. We need them caught. That's our main objective.
And police are hoping this footage will help make that happen so that the woman who was attacked can have justice and her sense of security restored.
I definitely want to see him locked up and put underneath the jail for what he did to me, because I didn't deserve this.
And the woman assaulted says one of the men also took off with her phone after snatching it out of her hand. Police say they have no new leads in this investigation and are asking anyone with information to contact them. In Harlem, Corey James, CBS 2 News.
Now, you've all just seen the video that I have posted for you all to see, the footage of exactly what happened. This incident, this assault, happened on Monday, the 18th of January 2021. So we're already into the new year, and it happened on the streets of Harlem at a liquor store at 17:52. So for those of you who don't know, that is 5:52 in the evening. And if it wasn't for COVID, this time of day would literally be during rush hour, so you would have a lot more people on the streets, a lot more traffic in the roads, etc. A lot more people would be around, a lot more people would be in the shops, but it was a little bit more quiet on that evening. Now, this lady was literally minding her own business. She had finished work. She was on her way to pick up her child, her daughter. She was on her way to pick up her daughter after work, and she stopped by the liquor store to get herself a bottle of wine after work. This is where the incident took place, inside the liquor store, and the harassment and the assault continued outside of the liquor store. Now, what we do know from the footage that we have just seen is that the assault was committed by 4 black men, aka Dusties, because that's exactly what these men are. The assault was committed by at least 4 of these Dusties, and this was all because she had turned them down because either one of them or all of them offered to pay for her bottle of wine or whatever beverage that she was getting at the time. They offered to pay for it, and she declined. Whether it was politely, whether it was rudely, I don't care, because that assault is not warranted on anybody just for rejection. But anyway, black men feel that they can do whatever they want to black women, so that is exactly what happened. So she declined their offer. I mean, any female, black, white, Latina, Arab, Asian, whatever, any woman who is approached by four strangers who happen to be the opposite gender, men, which is the stronger gender than the female gender, any female approached by four grown-ass men would most likely decline an offer for them to buy her groceries or beverages or whatever it is that she wanted to get. If it was like maybe one male, she would probably be more inclined to say yes, because one person just trying to buy you a drink, whatever. But four men, in a group, and one of them stands out and says, hey, let me buy whatever it is that you're buying, that can be a little bit off-putting, a little bit intimidating for anybody, because there's one of her and there's at least 3 or 4 of them, if not even more. So she declined their offer. And when she declined their offer, they clearly didn't like the answer that they received. But them being the Dusties that they are, they decided to continue to harass her, following her out of the store, telling her, what do you want to do about it? They then also chased this defenseless woman down the street and they mauled her. She reported that the men was kicking her continuously, hitting her. One of the men also robbed her iPhone 11, which is at about $700. So they took her phone. So how was she supposed to call for help afterwards or find her way back home? They didn't care. They mauled her, they robbed her, and the worst part is one of these men, I think it was the man that was in the red bomber jacket. Hopefully he can be spotted with that red bomber jacket. That should be the piece of evidence that gives him away, although his face can be clearly seen in the footage, so somebody must recognize him. This bum bit her in the face, bit her, it is reported, on the forehead, but it was an attempt to gouge her eye out with his teeth. What animal? Because no human being would do this. Only, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mike Tyson did this in the boxing ring, which is still not legal. Who in their right mind would try to bite out another human being, let alone a female's eye out? Women and rejection. And I know that's exactly what it is, because in her statement she stated that he had said, what, do you think you're better than us? Of course she's better than you. If you're committing an act like this, everybody is better than you, every single human being. Now, as I stated before, and as we've seen in the footage, there were at least 4 of these men who were in the store harassing this woman, ended up following her outside of the store, chasing her, mauled her, and robbed her, and tried to gouge her eye out. Now, you're telling me not one of these men could have stood up for this lady and said, you know what, this is going too far. They had no boundaries. They didn't care. They just went as far as they could go because they feel like that's what they could do. They feel like they own black women. They can do what they like. There are no boundaries with them. There are no boundaries. There are no limitations. There's no limits. All bets are off when it comes to these men. All of them gave into the peer pressure. Not one of them wanted to take accountability and say, you know what, this is too much, this is too far, sorry about this, just go home. Not one. And I've heard it before. I've heard grown-ass men say, well, what can I say to that person? That's another grown-ass man. What can I say? I'm not his mother. I'm not his father. Black men refuse to take accountability for their actions. These Dusties will even sit there and convince themselves that what they did was correct. There are probably even more Dusties out there that would condone the actions of these hoodlums because they were rejected. Also, let's get into the bystanders that were around, because there were bystanders that were around, and I also believe that there were even more bystanders that probably weren't in the camera footage, but they were elsewhere and saw what happened. I know someone had to have seen what happened. This happened at a liquor store that is probably well known on the street. These hoodlums, it's probably not their first time going into that liquor store. So the shopkeeper must have seen something. He must have seen at least the initiation of what happened, whether it was them offering to buy her beverages or her groceries, them following her out of the store. This is most likely not his first time seeing one or four of these men. So somebody knows who they are. Somebody definitely knows who they are, and if they saw them, they could identify them, or they could identify them just from the camera footage that was shown on the news clip. And I also want to get into another bystander, because you know what, for the shopkeeper, sometimes, they don't really care about what's going on around them. They just want to get their money. They just want to mind their own business, But there was another bystander. There was another bystander who saw what had happened, and this lady, this 31-year-old woman, reported that that bystander advised her almost after the fact to run, because that bystander has seen it happen before. That bystander reported that they had seen these men do the same before in the past. So we know that for these bums, for these hoodlums, these dusties, we know that it is definitely not their first rodeo. This is not their first time doing this. This is not their first time disrespecting women, whether it be black. We don't know who the person was before because they have not come forward. It didn't make the news, etc. So we don't have much evidence on that situation. But this is not their first time. They're known for doing this. They have a reputation for doing this. And they clearly don't care. They don't care who sees them. They didn't care who was if they were caught on camera. They didn't care if there were bystanders, because this is just this is evening. If this was the summertime, the sun would still be out. This is literally early evening. Most people wouldn't have even had their dinner when this assault had taken place. However, the bystander that we are referring to did not jump in. And I know a lot of people these days don't necessarily jump into assaults because they're afraid of their lives. They're afraid if they get caught up, they might get hurt too. But there are other things that this bystander could have done at the time to help this lady. The bystander could have called the police for themselves. The bystander could have gone into the shop to tell the shopkeeper to call the police. Or the bystander could have just made some noise to try and deter the men from doing what they were doing, making it known that they were being watched. But that bystander did neither, just advised her to run. Where was her protection? You're telling me that that bystander could not have done anything to try and save her, apart from tell her to run? But anyway, this is the life that we live in. In our communities, we have to fear for our lives. We have no protection as black women. We have no one standing up for us. We have nothing. All we have is each other as black women. Also, this is yet another case of black men, the bums, the dusties in our communities, and their egos being hurt. I fear that if that woman had agreed for them to buy her groceries, what would have happened next? What if she did agree for them to buy her groceries? The rejection alone led to all of this. She could have lost her eye. She could have been blind. They could have broken one of her bones. They already robbed her. They already violated her. They've already most likely given her how much PTSD. She's still recovering from this situation physically, let alone mentally. But they don't care. They don't care because Their ego has been bruised. A black woman rejected them. And who is a black woman to reject anybody? They feel at the time that it was acceptable for them to put their hands on a black woman. They felt that at the time it was acceptable to beat this black woman. They felt that at the time that this black woman was worthless enough to rob her of her possessions. And they felt that at the time it was acceptable to violate this woman of her rights to speak out that she didn't want them to buy her beverage. Does she not have a right to do so? Clearly not, because these bums feel like it is acceptable to take out their life frustrations on black women. And it would be so interesting for us to get into maybe the statistics, maybe the data, maybe the audits that have been done in order to find out the percentage, the rise in cases of violence that has increased between the black man and the black woman, especially as police brutality is on the rise. Crimes are now being filmed. Police brutality is now being filmed. Because of COVID, people are losing their jobs, etc. Who gets the brunt of it? Because black men can't take out their frustrations on the white man, because unfortunately black people don't have as much power as the white man, and we've known this for a long time. They don't take out their frustrations on white women because they praise white women up and down. So who can they take out their frustrations on? Maybe those they feel that are beneath them, such as the black woman. It would be interesting to know what the figures are and what the stats are. But I feel like as the black community, as black women, and as real black men that are out there, it is important for us. We need to. It is paramount that we get these type of men, boys, out of our communities. We need to fumigate and eradicate these Dusties from our community. These Pookies, these Ray Rays. We are fighting 3 pandemics, 3 epidemics. We already fight racism, systemic racism. We already fight COVID-19, which apparently we are predisposed to as black people. And we are fighting the bums in our community that don't want to better themselves, that don't want to protect their community, that don't want to stand up for their community, that don't want to do better on behalf of black women and children. We need to get these people out of our community. They have no place. And I believe that it is important for other black men, not just black women, because, the person who was assaulted here was a black woman. So, of course, we are going to condemn the act as black women sticking together. However, as black men, the real black men who are out there need to come together, stand up, and say, whoever these men are, we don't condone this. We don't condone this by any means, and they need to be found. Yes, the police needs to be involved, I believe. If people want to call the police and make a statement, I believe they should be able to do so, because there should be no more no-snitch policy in the black community, because that has done nothing to help us. We are civilians. We are citizens, so there is no reason why we shouldn't receive the help that we need and the help that we pay our taxes for. If we get assaulted as civilians, we deserve to be helped. However, if people want to take matters into their own hands and find the root cause of this problem themselves to eradicate it, I don't blame them also. But my advice to black women, especially in America, because it is legal to have a weapon, I believe that more black women need to put aside some money, get their license to carry, learn how to shoot, and get themselves a legal, licensed weapon, because it is too dangerous out there for us. It is too dangerous with everything that we are facing, and we cannot even get protection from our own men. We need to be able to take matters into our own hands and defend ourselves, especially if there are going to be times when we are out there alone. And my advice and my predictions for Black women is that the more that the Black woman wakes up, the more that the Black woman begins to divest, the more that the Black women start to make their own businesses, they start to make more money, we start to level up, we start to take ownership of our own things without our men, the more that we increase our standards and decline the bare minimum that men decide that they want to give us or what we deserve, the more that Black women seek a hypergamous lifestyle, which doesn't necessarily have to be money oriented. It could just be being with someone who is like-minded like you. No more struggle love. No more struggle love. You don't need to be the backbone of the Black man. We no longer need to be the one pulling him up. He can do that himself. The Black man is supposed to be the head of our households. So the more we seek a hypergamous lifestyle, I believe that this will happen to us more and more. We will start to see these cases rising. These bums, these Dusties that don't have anything going for themselves, that realize that they are losing Black women. We are waking up. We are seeing that there is more out there for us. We are tired of just putting up and shutting up and tolerating and accepting the bare minimum. We will see this more because they will realize that they are losing, and there will be nobody out there for them, whether it be Black, whether it be white, whether it be Latina. And make no mistake, the minute Black women wake up and realize there's more out there for us, everybody else will see it too. So it will either go one or two ways. This will give the Dusties the wake-up call that they need in our community to fix up, or things will just start getting out of hand and we will see even more assaults on us. So Black women, be wise, stay safe, strap up, and get with the program.
Oh, brother, I keep telling you, consciousness over coochie, politics over punani.